It's the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Pires coming to you from Baltimore. More than 1 million people have registered to vote in the UK elections since Theresa May called for the UK general election. The election is expected to be held on June 8th. And out of the 1 million submitted applications since April 18th, almost a third of them are under the age of 25, with another third coming from those aged between 25 to 34. This increase in interest from young voters comes at a time when registration rules have been changed to make it more difficult to vote in the UK. Joining us today to discuss the upcoming elections in the UK and what all this young voter registration is all about is Thomas Barlow. Thomas has worked as a community organizer and activist. He's senior editor and co-founder of the UK independent news outlet, Real Media. Thanks for joining us, Thomas.
Thanks for having me.
So, Thomas, give us a sense of what this surge of voter registrations are all about from a very young population.
Well, it's quite interesting that it's gone widely underreported because it's very significant, because recently there was a poll that said that if only under 45s voted, Labour would win in a landslide, and that there has been a sort of intergenerational divide. You know, naturally over 60s tend to vote more, but also have been seen in both the Euro elections, the general elections, and then the Brexit election to be deciding the fate of young people. Basically, there's been a perception that the baby boomers have taken the gifts given to them by previous generations and then pulled up the ladder underneath them. Housing, education, healthcare, all of these gifts remain with them and maybe not the young people. Other people have argued that maybe that's unfair and that there isn't actually a generational battle, and in fact we should be concentrating on what affects us all, because of course actually the Conservatives are attacking old people as much as young people and a lot of the services that affect them. But anyways, in regards to voter registration, that 80% of new voters registered are under 45 is very significant. They'll almost certainly be, in the vast majority, registering to vote against the Conservatives. That might be SNP, Plaid Cymru, Lib Dem or Labour, probably the majority Labour, but also that we don't tend to poll unregistered voters at this time, and polls have been notoriously incorrect for the past 3 or 4 years on pretty much every occasion. So we're now in a situation where, although the polls put the Conservatives in a significant lead, which has been shrinking, that they may be wildly incorrect, and that actually these new voters make up actually now in around about 40 constituencies the margin of victory. So this is a very significant development, and what comes of it we don't know, but what we do know is that it's not being talked about much, and we don't know where these votes are going, but that it probably looks quite positive for Labour and anti-Conservative forces.
Right. And what and who is driving these new registrants? I understand some famous media personalities and artists have come out calling for people to go out and register. But what's really driving it?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because people like Stormzy, JME, Big Nasty have all come out, and these are grime artists, the sort of underground hip-hop scene in the UK, have come out in support of Jeremy Corbyn, and people like Russell Brand and Owen Jones, who have become, in their own ways, significant political commentators, have come out and said young people should register to vote, that they always get left behind. How much impact that actually has, I'm not sure. I think there is a general sense that young people have been left behind, have been left out of the political conversation because largely they don't vote, but also because the Conservative Party and the governing coalitions have largely been made up of and reliant on very old votes. In fact, if you took over 60s out of the voting pool, the Conservative Party would be the 4th largest party in the UK. So young people have started, I think, to realise over the previous elections, and whilst actually older people are getting election fatigue, it may be that younger people are actually looking at elections now as an opportunity to make a political difference when previously they didn't. Now they're starting to realise they're being left out of the conversation because they haven't been voting in large numbers, and people are making that effort even though it is more difficult now.
And what is making it more difficult to register to vote in the UK? Are there new regulations that is applied now that wasn't there before?
Yeah, the Conservatives brought in a raft of changes to make it more difficult in a number of areas. So they're going to bring in boundary changes to constituencies, decrease the number of members of Parliament, and a lot of other changes. But those haven't come in yet. But what has come in is that everyone has to do individual registration instead of household registration. So usually one person in your house would register the entire family or everyone who lives under one roof, and you could do it that way. Individual registration, slightly different. It puts more onus on people to register individually, which was thought it was supposed to impact students, especially who usually live in two places, so they wouldn't get reminders, so they wouldn't make the effort because they'd only be able to register in one place. And if they're registered at home, they're not registered at university, they wouldn't do it. It was expected to have a negative impact on young people turning up to vote. But it looks like that hasn't been the case, and in fact it's encouraged people, or for whatever reason the political climate has encouraged people to go, regardless of the fact that this is more difficult and one person can't register everyone in a household, we're going to go out and do it individually anyway.
Right. And finally, Thomas, now how important is this new generation of voters? Now, we know it had a significant impact in the selection for the Labour leader, where Jeremy Corbyn was selected, because a lot of young people went and registered for the party and voted when the membership voted for the leader of the party. And that made a significant difference in terms of Jeremy Corbyn being the leader now. Given that, what impact will this under 25 and under 34, what have you, what impact will that have on this election, do you think?
Yeah, it is hard to say concretely. Polling hasn't been done. As I say, they usually this section of people, new voters, unregistered voters, and young voters, are largely left out of polls because largely they don't tend to have a large impact on elections. I would suggest that actually, whilst it is not going to lead to a Labour victory, what it is going to potentially do is stop a Conservative landslide. I think there will be unexpected results, probably, on election night, and the Conservatives, although they look like they're 15 to 20 points up in the polls in certain places, it may not win that significantly. It's hard to see at the moment, but this is a very large number of people. It's genuinely unexpected, and I think it will make a significant impact. And there's still 10 days to go. So what we might see is even more young people signing up. There's potentially another 1 million young people to sign up. Maybe we will see, 1 million under 25 sign up in the next 10 days to 2 weeks, and that could have a really, really large impact.
All right, Thomas, I thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us here on the Real News Network.